I'm looking forward to checking out the Giannis series on Disney. I heard it's really, really good. It's really nothing about basketball, really just how he became, how he got to America and how he drew his family over here to America and really became the player that he became. One of my friends checked it out. He says it's an unbelievable story, and it's definitely going to win Emmy awards. When the Emmys next year, come out. So I'm interested to see that. And I see that you're a huge Giannis fan, by the way.
I am a huge Giannis fan. I don't know that I'm so much a fan of any player anymore like I used to be when I was younger. But I am a fan of what he is, what he represents, and the work that he put in to get to the point where he is. Because this is a guy, if you look back at his rookie pictures, he was skinny as me in high school. He really was. I mean, he didn't belong out there. And this is hard work that has earned him this position in the league. And, I'm good friends with Miran Fader, who wrote a biography on Giannis. She's not involved in that Disney thing, but she's excited about it too. This is a guy that you can really pull for. He's earned everything he's got.
As everybody knows, we're talking to one of the very well-known commentators on the NBA TV, Beau Estes. So my question for you is, when you look at obviously the trade deadline and everything, not the trade deadline, the free agency market that opened up. I mean, Jalen Brunson going to the Knicks. I don't know how much that makes the Knicks a contender, but some of the moves that happen, obviously the Boston making the move that they did for Brogdon, which a lot of our Boston fans think that Brad Stevens should be GM of the year because they made that move. By the way, Brogdon can't stay healthy, but if he is healthy, it's a pretty good move. What were your thoughts to the free agency market when it opened up?
This is not like an all-time great year, right? There's not an incredible superstar out there. But I do think it is interesting to look at Boston off that final series, addressing a need right there with Brogdon. I sort of stand by Marcus Smart and say, look, what's wrong with the point guard you got? But this is support. Basically, the NBA is not about one guy playing point guard anymore. It is people who can create with the ball in their hand, and you can move it around, and several guys are able to do that. Brogdon is one of those guys, and Brogdon can play defense, and Brogdon has a little more size than Smart. So it's just another guy that you can run out there who can switch everything, who can shoot, who can penetrate. I think it's a great move for the Boston Celtics. I'd be pretty excited about that one, too. Jalen Brunson's interesting to me because Jalen Brunson sort of forces your hand. If you're going with him as your point guard, he's really, interestingly enough, he's a 6'1" guy who's an interior scorer. He goes in and scores inside. He drives inside. So how does Julius Randle play off that? How does R.J. Barrett play off that? I feel like New York had to spend. I just feel like New York has to put a product out there because, remember, 2 years ago, they're in the playoffs. They lose to Atlanta, but they look like they were pretty good, and then they fall off this year. Julius Randle falls off. I think they got to push it all in a little bit this year and see if they can get something out of this iteration of the Knicks and get back in the playoffs. Because, it's better for the NBA if the Knicks are good, if the Celtics are good, if the Lakers are good. These are these historic teams that are meaningful to fans around the world.
So Rudy Gobert gets traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Jazz get a lot back in return, 4 players and a bunch of draft picks. So what do you think about that trade? And also, what does that mean for Donovan Mitchell? Do you think he'll stay in Utah or still get traded?
First of all, I'd like to highlight your quote. Jazz get a lot back from that trade. Boy, did they. That's another team that sort of put the chips on the table. Karl Anthony Towns is not a famous interior defender. He was a weakness down there. So you go and get Rudy Gobert. He's as good as there is in the paint defending. Can he get some stuff with a more open lane if Karl Anthony Towns is pushed out and a budding superstar in Anthony Edwards is out there? So it's an interesting move for Minnesota for me, and Donovan Mitchell's got to be out of Utah, right? What does he want to do there anymore? He's going to be very unhappy.
The Knicks are one of those teams that everybody keeps talking about. Julius Randle is a guy that they're going to have to move if they have any chance to get him. And Donovan has been seen going out with Manuel Quigley and some of the different young players on the Knicks. I know a lot of people have attacked me. I don't know if he's on his way out. Danny Ainge has spoken out and said that he's building around him, but I've heard Danny Ainge say a lot of crazy things over the years, and I know he hates the Knicks. I know that, but if he only wants to go to the Knicks and that's where he wants to be, more than likely that's where he's going.
Maybe. Danny Ainge's job is to get as much value for the players as he can. So if Danny Ainge says he's not going anywhere, that just means it's going to be hard to get him.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to make it as hard as possible to get him. So I understand what Danny Ainge is doing there. But I just, again, players dictating where they're going to get traded to and who they're going to be traded for and what the other team should receive in return. I mean, good on you if you can get it, man. But, I don't see the owners loving this going forward.
Right.
There has to be some balance of power there. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out because Kevin Durant is one thing. Donovan Mitchell is a completely separate deal. He is not Kevin Durant.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's able to move heaven and earth in the NBA and make owners do whatever he wants, man, the players have got a lot of power. And again, I've been working with the NBA since 1994. So that, I'm just trying to imagine the labor dispute we would go through because we've been through some before.
So you being from Atlanta, they made a big trade as well. DeJounte Murray coming over to play with Trae Young. I always thought that was a good trade because I thought that they complement each other well. Murray more of a defensive point guard and not as good of a shooter, but does everything else well with the size. And Trae Young, a great shooter, great passer, and that'll open up more looks for them. So what do you think that trade was like, and what do you think of the Hawks' upside this year? This jump they can make?
I'm waiting for the other shoe to fall because there's been so much talk about John Collins and what's going on with John Collins and what are they going to do with John Collins because they have a rim runner in Clint Capella. They have a young guy inside that they like in Onyeka Okongwu. So I'm going to be interested to see, does John Collins stay there? Because John Collins is one of those guys that are just below all-star level, but really, really close, that score near 20 points a game, that give you a lot. That's John Collins. So do they move him? Do they get some other piece that fits? Because I really agree. I think the Hawks backcourt is wonderful right now. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And it's going to be trouble to stop them offensively, defensively. We'll see how Trae and DeJounte mesh. And that sometimes can take time. So I'm interested to see how that works out. But, man, I think the Hawks have something to be excited about. This year was honestly a bit of a disappointment coming off the season where they go to the Eastern Conference Finals. But, people always talk about that they sort of overshot the runway 2 years ago. Nobody thought they were an Eastern Conference finalist 2 years ago. They get there. So now, they sort of come back to earth a little bit. This is a year where they should be doing something. But go through the East, guys. Look at the super teams. There's Milwaukee. There's Boston. There's Philadelphia. What's Miami got this year? Does Brooklyn bring those guys back? It's not easy in the East right now. It's not easy. So Atlanta's knocking up against all those teams and hoping to get one of those top 4 spots.
We are talking to NBA.com and NBA TV commentator and analyst Beau Estes. Last question for me. DeAndre Ayton, who seems like he's still available. It's crazy how he was the big talk of the town before the free agency market opened up. Now they're saying he's going to be sitting down and waiting until KD gets moved, if he gets moved. And if he doesn't get moved, where the hell is DeAndre Ayton going? Because he hasn't gone anywhere so far. Everybody's getting an extension. We saw Zach LaVine get his $200 million extension. We've seen other players get their $100 and $200 million extension. But he's the only one sitting there. Phoenix is not re-signing. Where's he going?
This may be a play for him to keep that money available for a trade. So when he signs, I think there's a period of time they have to wait to make a trade happen. So what I expect is, first of all, if you've got a player as good as DeAndre Ayton, there's not a lot of teams that wouldn't have maxed him out at the start of last year. But, Phoenix may have been right. He sort of let them down in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. But I think it's going to be interesting because I think they're saving that. It goes back to that Kevin Durant thing. Is that what they're waiting for? Is Phoenix trying to put DeAndre Ayton and another piece and some draft picks together and see if that's enough for Kevin Durant? And Brooklyn's just, guys, they're just looking around the NBA. Who's got the best deal for us? Who's got the best deal? And then they're going to go to Kevin Durant and say, this is what we're going with if you like it. I really believe that. I'm not sure that they're going to deal this guy. I'm not positive about it because he's so good. And look, is shoe, the toe of his shoes on the line a couple of years ago, or they win a championship in all likelihood. That's how close they were. So, if I'm Brooklyn, it's really hard for me to let that guy go.
So my last question, I know you've had both the live broadcasting and also you do the top 10 for the highlights as well on NBA TV. So your favorite, any call that you've had live broadcast any game, and your favorite moments, any moments you have with the highlights.
My single favorite moment ever calling anything for those top tens was an Atlanta Hawks dunk by Mike Scott off a Jay-Z and Kanye song. And it's the first time I ever did anything silly. And I think it was like 8 seeds are psycho. They're like Michael. They might go gay. I think it was like Jackson, Tyson, Mike Scott, Game 6. And that's when I think Deadspin picked it up. And I got a text. I'll tell you guys the truth. I got a text from Brent Berry. And Brent Berry just texted me. He says, "You're on the front page of Deadspin." First of all, guys, that's not a comfortable feeling because it's vague. You don't know if it's bad or if it's good. But yeah, I got that text from Brent, and that's when that whole top 10 thing took off. And it was it's really been a fun ride since that with that NBA top 10.
Well, we really appreciate your time, man. You're awesome. We definitely want to get you on again, and we'll be listening and watching you, man, as always, as you're a very talented source for the NBA TV.
Thanks so much, guys. It's been a pleasure.